Well, welcome back to another week of analysis behind the news. You know, we're hearing an awful lot of complaints, if you will, from people about Obamacare. Oh, excuse me, that's the Affordable Care Act now that it's in trouble. See, when it had a good image, it was Obamacare. Now that the image has been tarnished and will be tarnished further, it's now the Affordable Care Act because they don't want to link Obama to this debacle. Now they're even beginning to take a look at certain states that maybe the millions of dollars that were spent to set up these exchanges that aren't working, that maybe there's some fraud involved. Well, I think there's going to be a lot of fraud involved with Obamacare. You cannot read the act, Obamacare Act, without reading it with a devious thinking in your mind. Because you've got to take a look at what people have in store using this act against the American people, because this really is a program that is aimed right at the heart of the American economy and American society as a whole. There have been things in the past that we've talked about, and we sell a DVD on them, and we've tried to warn people, and nobody seems to be listening, particularly about the Section 1553, which is, as they put it, prohibition against discrimination on assisted suicide. Now, the title sounds great. It's a prohibition against discrimination on assisted suicide. But I've had lawyers read this, and they've substantiated what I thought after reading it several times, because it is written in the double negative. It states basically that the federal government will not refrain from giving grants to institutions that do not provide abortion, assisted suicide, euthanasia, etc. Let me say that again. It means that they will not refrain from giving grants to institutions that do not provide those services. What's the converse? That they will be giving grants to institutions that do. Now, a very interesting thing showed up in yesterday's New York Times, and its title is "Finding Voters Easier Than Finding Uninsured." And I got this offline. I have an online subscription to the New York Times. And you know, it's a funny thing. When you read this, I wasn't going to really look at it until I saw the caption under the photograph. And the caption under the photograph says, "A canvasser with Planned Parenthood works in Florida." I said, well, wait a minute. What's Planned Parenthood got to do with signing up the uninsured into Obamacare? And finally, towards at least two-thirds of the way through the article, it says this: "The campaign is staffed by organizations deploying thousands of paid and volunteer canvassers. Planned Parenthood has raised millions of dollars for the effort. It is paying about 400 workers like Morwan, the individual that they're talking about in the article, $12 an hour. They are knocking on an average of 18,000 doors a day in 8 states: Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, New Mexico, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Texas." Now, I'm sure that Planned Parenthood went out and raised millions of dollars to sign up people into Obamacare. Now, if you believe that, I've got a couple of real interesting history books that are used in the public schools that you might find interesting. Interesting from the standpoint of they have no relationship to real history. I don't believe for a moment that Planned Parenthood went out and raised millions of dollars to hire a bunch of folks to go door to door and sign people up in Obamacare. I believe, and I can't prove it, but I strongly suspect that these millions of dollars, if some congressman wanted to look into it, would find that they come from the federal government to hire Planned Parenthood to go out and please sign people up, because we can't get them to sign up online. Because the online situation is so goofed up. Doesn't work. And the other little thing towards the end, it says, by end of January, nearly 3.3 million people had enrolled, meaning enrolled in Obamacare for insurance. Well, what they don't talk about is how many people actually are on this system. You see, because a lot of people start out on the system, but then they find out that they can't get to the end. There's some goofy thing that happens that they're online for minutes and hours trying to get enrolled. And then it doesn't mean that they've actually paid for the service. What it appears to be, by what has been brought out in the open, is that there have been 3.3 million people who've tried to enroll, but it doesn't mean that they've gone through the entire process of enrolling and then paying a premium. Otherwise, why would Obama have told the insurance companies that if you don't get paid, we'll make it up later on, even though they haven't paid their first premium? They're supposed to take care of people that have tried to enroll or did enroll and didn't pay. So it's a whole convoluted thing in the way of sound economics or anything else. It just isn't working. And so we see here a huge hint that maybe the federal government is paying an organization and others, apparently, to go out and try and get people to sign up door to door for a system that they do not want. And by the way, they're not being very successful at it either. They're having doors closed in their face, any number of different things. People do not want this, and yet we see money continually going into it. A very disturbing thing. If people would want it, they could get online. People usually do what they need to do to get something they want. They don't need to be harassed door to door by paid people to get them to do something they don't want to do. Another thing, just as a follow-up, we discovered now that the spy death investigation is going forward in England. Now, for those of you who've been paying attention to terrorism around the world, the name of Alexander Litvinenko is very important, because this man is the individual who brought forward that al-Zawahiri, who is the second in command, now the first in command, since the death of Osama bin Laden, of al-Qaeda, that al-Zawahiri was a Russian-trained asset. Alexander Litvinenko was an individual who worked in the KGB in Russia, and he knew these things and came out and wrote a book talking about what was going to happen in certain areas and what did happen and who is behind a lot of this terrorism. And for that, he was poisoned with a radioactive substance in his tea by 2 Russian agents in England. And now they're bringing this investigation forward, because there for a while it was put on hold. I guess they didn't want to offend Putin or somebody. But at any rate, a very important case in the way of justice for individuals who sacrificed everything to come out from the Russian intelligence apparatus and inform us as to what's going on in critical areas. And in this one area with al-Qaeda, it's very critical, very important, and our president or our Congress or anything else are not talking about the fact that al-Qaeda's main man, the guy in charge of al-Qaeda, is a Russian-trained asset. Any more than they do anything really about Obamacare. They talk, but they don't do anything. Until next week, we'll see you then.